I've got a growth mindset and I'm constantly striving to push myself to do more. That's just something that's like a fire that burns inside me. There's too many people doing far too much talking and too little listening. If you're consulting with someone, asking the right questions, listening intently, and then being honest about what you can and can't do, that's how you build connection. I've just got this innate drive to want to be different, to do things differently, because I believe you get often better or different results through trial and error. I would say I had a mental breakdown in my early 30s. It came from multiple traumas that I wasn't dealing with as well as I could have. I had this crash and I really had to learn how to breathe again. When I feel truly free and the people around me know me for me and I can be me, that's when I fly. Being nice is not being kind. It doesn't matter whether people like you or not. People should respect you. Being kind is giving the critical feedback.
It is impossible for people to respect us if we don't respect ourselves, our boundaries, what we stand for, what we're worth, believe in the value that we add. Welcome to Lead Brightly, real conversations about leadership, confidence, and what it truly takes to lead with clarity, courage, and impact. I am delighted to be joined by Mel Mills today, who is a visionary and results-driven leader with a proven track record in scaling businesses, driving transformations, and leading high-growth, diverse teams across B2B and B2C technology sectors. She blends commercial acumen with sharp strategic execution to deliver accelerated, sustainable growth with people and relationships at the heart. Her unmatched drive stems from her personal journey as a fiercely independent woman and now mum, where resilience fueled her passion to give back. From this, Connection Career Collective was born, a community connecting and developing women and allies to thrive in a male-dominated world. Melanie's mission is clear: to empower women and allies to achieve their full potential and unlock opportunity through connection. That was quite a mouthful. I'm going to put my teeth back in now. Right, Mel, hello, welcome to Lead Brightly.
Not just you, Connection Career Collective is absolutely a mouthful. So let's just reference the CCC.
Yeah, that would be so much easier. Anyway, other than that, it's so lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I've got the first question I have for you is, you've done a lot. You know, you've led through teams through huge growth. You've navigated acquisitions. You're building a community. You've got a brilliant mix of commercial sharpness and humanity. Everything's going on. It sounds great. So what was the moment when you thought, right, I'm not here to play small anymore? Because you are absolutely not playing small. Did you notice that happening?
Look, I'm hugely ambitious, always have been. Always believed I could do whatever I set my mind to. I think that comes from having a dad that was in the military and, no such word as can't.
Yeah.
From a young age, entrepreneurial, at 15, decided I wanted to come to London. I'm from Hull originally, outskirts of Yorkshire, to do my own thing. So I don't think there's been one moment. I've got a growth mindset and I'm constantly striving to push myself to do more.
Yeah.
That's just something that's like a fire that burns inside me. So I don't think there's ever been one moment where I've thought, right, that's it, I'm off. I think I've been on a journey that went, for sure.
So at 15, did you actually leave home at 15 and move to London?
No, I mean, I made a decision that I'd move to London at 15. I wasn't allowed at that point, but I did kind of 18, I moved to Leeds and then moved to Manchester briefly. And I ended up in London when I was 20.
Yeah.
Still fairly young and without any family or friends to speak of here.
Yeah.
So it was quite a big step, but it had been kind of a stepping stone. I think Leeds was the first step, then Manchester, and then eventually got here. But within a couple of years, did set up my own business, and that had been my kind of aspiration.
And you've been in London ever since?
Yeah, I've been in London for over 25 years now.
Wow.
So a while.
And just talk to me a bit then about your education, because what did you do then up until then? Did you go to university? Did you follow the normal path? Are you quite an entrepreneurial spirit that got on with it and did other stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I'm creative at heart, actually. Not book smart, not academic. Did okay at school, enjoyed school, but more the arty side of things.
Yeah.
So I was never going to go down that traditional path. My dad was in financial services. He had more of a corporate career, although not from he was in the army initially and didn't again have any qualifications. So self-made man.
Yeah.
But just I loved school because of the people. I didn't love school because of some of the topics and the learning.
You like the learning bit. You like the playing bit.
Yeah, I liked a bit of PE. Yeah, I liked a bit of art.
You're a netball lady as well, aren't you? You do a lot.
I am. Yeah. I love netball. And I love to horse ride. Actually, that was another big passion of mine when I was younger. Yeah, I thought I was either gonna be an international event rider, or go and set up my own business in London, and we can see which one I did.
Or both, or both. I'll do it from the horse. Okay, so it's quite. I find it really fascinating how a lot of people who are really successful, really driven, they haven't gone through this what we call the standard path, and I don't think it is standard anymore for today. But that inner drive was in you always, absolutely always. So you talk a lot about connection being the catalyst for opportunity. So when did you first realize that connection was your superpower and rather than just something that leaders should do? When did you realize it was your thing, your gift?
I think when I moved to Leeds, I think I started to work in Harvey Nichols when that first opened. And what I realized was I just find it very easy to talk to people.
Oh.
And I'm really curious in nature. So I think that is why I've I've been in sales and sales training and leadership, most of my career. It's all about the connection with people because you can't sell anything unless you understand them and their problems.
Yeah.
So it was very easy to ask questions and to listen and then fulfill their needs.
Yeah.
And I just carried that all the way through, which is why I struggle with sales having I don't struggle. I can see why sales has got such a bad rap because there's too many people doing far too much talking and too little listening. And that's where the whole consultancy piece comes up, right? If you're consulting with someone, asking the right questions, listening intently, and then being honest about what you can and you can't do, that's how you build connection. That's how people trust you. And then that's how people return.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to run a training course called the Consultative Salesperson. And it was absolutely that. And I couldn't believe how many people thought you just went in and talked and talked and told. But that's what people think you do to sell.
Yeah.
If you're listening to them, if you're curious, and then you're honest about what you can and can't do, then you've got a great relationship going forward. And if you can relate and build a community around you, you can build great things. So you've built the CCC. I'm not even going to try and say it again, the CCC. What do you love most about that, leading that, growing that? Because it is growing, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, we're in a fast growth phase. Look, it's been ongoing for a couple of years. I was lucky enough to be able to run that alongside my full-time Chief Revenue Officer role at Caxton. They encouraged it. They were super supportive. And that's because I couldn't find what I was looking for in the market. And that was really to be able to give back at scale. I've always had mentors in my life and I've therefore mentored many people as well and still do. So it was born from this desire to give back at scale because you've only got so many hours in a day to be able to do that with individuals. I mean, it's a really exciting opportunity to be able to support women in a very authentic way and for them to build connections with one another, for that to help them fast track their careers. And look, it's fully inclusive. Male allies are absolutely involved and welcomed. We just want people to understand that there is a difference between men and women in the workplace. And I think that only amplifies when, women become mothers. And it becomes more of a juggling act, right?
Yeah.
So I think what do I enjoy most about it? Handpicking the people that I want to work with is an absolute joy. And the only people that kind of involved at partner level are tried and tested and trusted. So it goes back. So I don't know why I've always got this connection with 3 letters. But it means I remember it at least. So it's really important to me that anyone that's involved as a member, or as a partner, or as a sponsor has really got the right values and morals behind their approach. And I just think I've had a pretty torrid time myself through more of a traditional recruitment process and seeing the effect on others going through those processes when maybe they don't have traditional backgrounds.
Yeah.
So I'm really passionate about making sure people know that they can succeed no matter what their circumstance, where they've come from. I think it's far more about attitude and behaviour and skills rather than, the traditional, I've got X amount of experience and I went to uni. I just think that, especially within a sales space, that people connection is priority, and that doesn't always come from the traditional backgrounds.
No, I completely agree. And I'm just thinking when you're talking about authenticity, trust, and everything else. For people to be authentic, this podcast is obviously all about the relationship between leadership and confidence. But for people to be authentic and go on and achieve great things that you're helping with, first of all, you need to exude the right level of confidence. Then you need to help them exude it too, so that they can step into their authentic self, if you want to call it that. What do you see are the biggest challenges? Actually, let me ask you first. Do people assume that you're confident?
100%.
And would you say that there's a lot of truth behind that? Or are there times when you have felt, don't look at me, I don't know what I'm doing?
Yeah. I would say that I am naturally a confident person. I always strive to be different. Literally every hair colour, cut, style under the sun, tattoos, piercings, whatever. I was striving to be different. From early on, I moved away from Hull because it lacked diversity. People were quite staid. Everyone was kind of similar. It was just not really for me. Like, I always had this pull towards London because of its diversity and the opportunity that it presented. So I've definitely always led into not being fearful of being different because I was trying to make myself look different half the time.
Yeah.
It's also the same with business. Like, I'd always look for a different way of approaching things and setting that business out. Yeah. I'm going to use the word different again.
Right.
I should find another one. But, from the early days of launching Hourglass Cosmetics into Liberty, people weren't doing the video tutorials. We were one of the first people to do that.
Yeah.
I've just got this innate drive to want to be different, to do things differently, because I believe you get often better or different results through trial and error. So for me, I think, yes, naturally confident, but throughout the journey, there's been massive, massive knocks of that confidence, some of which I've masked, some of which I haven't. I've had my own major struggles with mental health.
Okay.
I'm open to that because people should know, talking about authenticity.
Yeah.
It's not all plain sailing. And I've lost my voice at times and not even realised. I've worked with coaches. I'm a big advocate of coaches and mentors and asking for help. So I've definitely had struggles myself. From the outside, I would say most people would think that I'm still have always been confident. But equally, I think the most recent is when I had my own business. I did an awful lot of presenting on large stages, but doing kind of makeup tutorials. And we mentioned about my comfort zone being creative. So when I was doing something with my hands, it seemed to take my mind off what I was saying, and then it all just flowed naturally. And I felt very at home doing that and didn't care that there was thousands of people in an audience while I did it. I think because I've transitioned careers and industries so many times, I think I've maybe started to dip in that confidence a little bit at times. And if I have not been in the right environment, that's knocked it. Certainly some, strong voices and having a lack of control in certain instances in my career has massively knocked my confidence. And that's when I've lent in even more into coaching mentors to get the support and work on myself to come back from that.
And it's great that you do that, because a lot of people will suffer in silence, but you're very self-aware. So you know when it's happening and you don't just sit back and go, well, what do I do about it? You actually go for it and sort it out. Have you got a specific time you're comfortable talking about where you had one of those confidence knocks? And if so, if you're happy sharing that, what did you learn was behind all of that?
Yeah. So I would say I had a mental breakdown in my early 30s. And it came from multiple traumas that maybe I wasn't dealing with as well as I could have done.
Okay.
And I'd been fired out from a role that it was like my baby. Like, I didn't have my daughter until later in life, and businesses were like my children, and I hired everyone and I brought them this journey. And it was like an entrepreneur is a great, word to use.
Yeah.
And so really, really put everything into work. And I had very little, and I don't like to use the word balance, because I do think at different times you need to put your energy into different things to really succeed. Well, I had very little else than 110% work for stages. And I think with the traumas combined, I think that I meant I had a real learn. And multiple traumas and balance or lack of. And as I said, having different times in your career, it is not all going to be plain sailing, and you've got your gym and you've got your friends and family. It's not always going to be like that. But there was definitely a long period where I was putting everything into work and not taking breaks and not looking after myself. So I had this crash, and I really had to learn how to breathe again. I had terrible anxiety. I was told I should go on depression meds and all sorts, because I'd not been dealing with some of the traumas.
Did you go on to meds?
No, I decided that
I'm going to deal with it. You really come across someone who's like, whatever it is, I will find a way. But you will power through, but do it the right way in this case.
And there's different ways for everyone, right? Not everything is going to work that way. But for me, it was about learning how to breathe. So I learned how to run. I could never run without a stitch. I used to have pins and needles in my hands. I had major anxiety. I mean, it was really bad. But I took 3 months at home with my mom and found another job and decided, right, I'm transitioning. I'm coming away from this industry. I want to be in a more diverse and inclusive industry, because I'd spent a long time in fashion and cosmetics with different types of people, right? Different ways of thinking, different approaching. And I decided that tech was the way forward. So that's actually when I landed in tech.
It's a big jump, isn't it? From beauty to tech. And could it be any further apart?
Possibly not, but that's me all over.
Yes.
I could see the potential within the tech industry. It was of interest because I could see you needed a huge and diverse team to be able to build technology and to do all of these great things. And I just decided to try and explore it. Obviously, the transition piece is huge, and that's part of what we talk about in the Career Collective, is that transitioning shouldn't be made as difficult as it is. If you've got core skills, right, it shouldn't matter about the industry in certain instances, right? If you're an expert in tax or audit or, or a lawyer, I get it, right?
Yeah.
But I think the support rules around all of that, a more generalist approach means that you could bring more innovative ways of approaching things. Instead of just doing things in the same way that they've always been done in this one industry, you bring loads of different expertise and thinking into a new space. And that's always served me pretty well, and the people I've hired, if I'm honest.
Well, the trouble with that is the majority of people are scared of difference because of the way our brains work. We see something different. And also, if you look at senior level roles that people are being interviewed for now, the first thing we look for is, have you done all this before? Particularly in this industry with this widget. People are so scared of getting it and scared of diversity and everything else. So I love that you're championing that and you're living and breathing that as well. So this point where you had this mental breakdown and you basically burnt out, right? You were in a terrible state. You say there were multiple traumas going on. I don't need to go into all of what they were, but I'm just thinking about that impacted your confidence. Did you know early on that your confidence was shaky, or was it afterwards when you had the support and the coaching and the mentoring that you realized confidence had played a part in that?
I mean, I was definitely masking. So, I remember the initial calls with my coach, and it was not that, confidence is not an issue. And it honestly wasn't an issue, but it was coming out in different ways. So the biggest part, and it kind of affected me maybe, less than a year ago, is I've always enjoyed a conversation. I know a panel chat, I can be on stage if there's other people, we're having a conversation and I'm asked my opinion, all great.
Yeah.
I have really struggled with having a presentation. So if there's a presentation behind me that I feel I'm supposed to be following, or I'm supposed to be the professional Melanie, or I'm being something that I think maybe other people expect of me, that's when I'm not great. So I had a bit of a realization around that. and then worked through, well, what is my storytelling methodology? How do I be me, be really authentically me, and not try to conform to what I think should be of me on a stage for a certain business.
Yeah.
So
just kind of stepping into, actually, this version of Melanie is absolutely brilliant. It's fine. It's perfect for what needs to happen here. I don't need to conform. But that feeling that you had to fit in suggests that you didn't think that you did. And underneath that, there's lots of beliefs, aren't there? Self-limiting beliefs and all sorts of things that get in your way. So once you've worked through that and figured out what it is, you're suddenly free.
Yeah. Free. And I think there's a massive amount around this select the people that are around me. And I think ultimately it's all about control. Whenever I feel like I haven't got control of my destiny, of my environment, of what I'm saying, then that it doesn't work out so well. When I feel truly free and the people around me know me for me and I can be me, that's when I fly. So I think, at the moment we've just had our big kind of relaunch event, and for the first time in a long time, even though there was a presentation behind me, even though it just had an agenda on it, the people that were beside me made me feel great. The people that were in front of me made me feel great. And therefore, the jerks, the trip ups, me just being me were all fine. And that was a lovely environment to be in, because I felt like everybody, therefore, in front of me might feel a little bit more like they can do it. Yeah. They don't need to be something else. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can find your own way, right? So it was an interesting time, and feeling good about it now.
Hugely empowering. I think you're absolutely right. People don't want to see perfection, whatever they think is perfection. What they want to see is someone having a good time, having the confidence to get it right, get it wrong, have a laugh, just enjoy themselves. Because if people are enjoying themselves, then they're going to be feeling good. Now, that brings me on to another thought, which is, when you weren't feeling as confident, not that you knew you weren't feeling as confident, but when you were masking, how did that change how people reacted to you? And the reason I ask that is when we're really confident and we're magnetic, like you were last week with the CCC, you can feel that people drawing to you and you drawing to them. It's a lovely feeling. Did you notice a difference to how people treated you or how people behaved towards you when your confidence was?
No, because I honestly think that the majority of the time I would have come across the same way. When I wasn't and I was having down times, actually showing people that I was not doing well and explaining it meant they connected with me even more. Yeah. And I don't know that people would have then attributed that to lack of confidence. It was just, look, I'm going through difficult times and I'm sharing those with you. Yeah. Now you understand me and connect with me more. Yeah. And then I'll come back to life. Yeah. So I think, I just don't think that any time of my career people have said, well, she lacked confidence. They just wouldn't. So there was a lot going on in the background, but I was able to kind of get through it. And then in the down times, actually be honest about it, which meant people connected with me more anyway. But it just wasn't attributed always to confidence. It was attributed to just tough times that you were going through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. So by being honest, even did it feel uncomfortable, to be honest, by the way? Because I don't know many people. You're so strong in your ability to be open. And I think that's a massive quality that a lot of leaders don't feel able to demonstrate because of the fears of, if I'm open, what are people going to think? And you just, what I want people who are listening or watching this to realize that you can do anything. And if people are going to respond to you badly because you've been honest with them, that's not your problem. That's a them problem, right?
Absolutely. Do you know what? This takes me to a really interesting conversation I had with a couple of non-execs. And I'd had one conversation with a female non-exec and we connected 100, oh my God, instantly. And we ended up talking about divorces and all sorts, literally within a second. She's like, I can't believe I'm telling you this. But it's because I'm so open, people then feel open and then you can bond so much quicker.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, the other non-exec came in, but just before they did, she was like, oh, don't say this and don't say that and don't let no, I would never have let anyone know this. And it's, I think, partly a generational thing, potentially. But it's such a shame. Like, I just think that if you've got large teams and you aren't being open and honest. I don't have a degree, or I've had this, I've had that, or I'm caring, or my mum had cancer. Like, people see that you're a real human, then they can connect with you, they trust you, they're loyal to you, and they can be more themselves. Well, I'd much rather know if one of my team is off for 2 days, not because they've put a sick note in, but because there's a problem in their family, and then how can I help with that? I just think there's an openness. There's no need to be. Transparency is everything. Authenticity is everything. But we've got this awful perception of what people should be or might be, or this whole social media doesn't help, let's be honest.
No,
It's all perfect, edited. I mean, I don't mind an odd edit on a picture, but
and it's of lighting going on here. It's all good.
Exactly. But why does everything have to be fake? Let's be honest. Let's give feedback. Let's support one another. I just have a
very
very
much easier, wouldn't it? So much easier. And the thing is, in my job, what I see is it's very rare to have people like you so open, so honest. And when I do find those people, I think they are just wonderful. For me, I talk about leading brightly. That to me is the essence of someone who's leading brightly, openly, confidently, right level of confidence, without too much bias. I mean, we're all full of it, but manages the bias, caring, empathetic, able to say, I'm having a bad day. Now, that doesn't mean that you share every single issue that's going on in the organization. I think this is where people go wrong a bit. They think, well, being authentic and being open and honest means I've got to tell them everything, and I can't. It isn't about telling everybody everything. It's about caring for them, telling them what they need to know when you can tell them. And then if you can't tell them some stuff, tell them, I can't tell you this and why. It's not that difficult.
No, it's not that difficult, but it's made to feel and sound difficult, and it just isn't. And I'm doing a podcast next week. We've decided the topic is energy. And I think, to drive an organization forward, especially in a revenue phase, where the numbers speak volumes, and you're leading large teams, and you've got to keep the momentum, and look, things have been tough. You can't be showing all the downs all the time, right? Because that isn't going to motivate people to keep going. No. But I think there are times, when you are, going for lunch, or you are connecting and trying to understand more about people, that they can see the real you. It doesn't then become excuses. It doesn't then become, the fallback in sharing too much. But there is that feeling of, well, this person's human, and they've been there, they understand, and therefore I can also be open and honest. I do think you get huge amounts of loyalty through that, and that's probably why the majority of people that I've led over the years I'm still in contact with, I work with in some way. They may have the odd mentoring session, because of that connection, but that only comes through openness.
Absolutely. So thinking about being an authentic leader, being confident enough to share about yourself, to build those connections, there's going to be people watching and listening to this thinking, oh, I just wouldn't dare. You shouldn't, when you're a leader, you shouldn't be sharing personal stuff with people. Can you go too far? I mean, do you think, is it possible to go too far? And so if so, what is enough? What advice would you give? Because it's personal, I think, isn't it? How much you feel like sharing.
There's a time and a place, as with everything. Number one. Number two is, I think you need to consider the who and the when. And I think I learned quite a big lesson, let's say, whereby it was almost like my team had become like my family and friends. I mean, it was too much. And I think there's different levels, right? You need a peer group potentially within work and also out externally. But when everything is internal, then that's when things can go awry. So I think I learned that lesson quite quickly. I've always been in leadership roles, from being even just a supervisor in a bar in 17, right? There was never a time where, if I was working with people, that maybe I wasn't a team leader, supervisor, manager. There's always been that. So I've learned lessons along the way. And that was certainly a big one. And I think from that, it was then having this external piece, which is where the mentors and the coaches and, picking the right people to have the conversations outside of the organization, because it helps me to work things through when I vocalize things. Yes, I may be an oversharer. Yes, I'm not afraid of asking for help. Yes, I'm very open. Yeah, exactly. I think especially when I stepped more into a corporate environment, I'd already learned a lot of those lessons and self-reflected and understood how and when and where. and then educate some of my teams around that. Like I would always try and bring like the head level together, because what you don't want to do is kind of earn upwards and you don't want to do it downwards, but you should have your little confident group in your level, which then helps you navigate those challenges together. But equally to find people outside of an organization, which is why I'm a real advocate for, mentorship programs outside of the org, because how much can you share within an organization?
This is the thing, and I think about, it makes me, people say to me, we've got coaches inside, so we don't need external coaches. Coaches and mentors actually on the inside, I think, are really useful. Coaches, not so much so, because you really want to be able to be open and vulnerable with a coach. And you're always worried in case it's getting back to the wrong person, is the intent of that coach really what you need it to be, which is, you're here for me, this isn't going to go anywhere else, it's a really safe space. But I think for mentoring, because you're teaching something, it's probably easier for it to be internal.
Yeah, but I think with it being internal, you're only going to get that corporate viewpoint. And if someone's been in their role a long time, I think there's a huge amount of value of coming at it with some different experience, not saying you don't have your mentor internally. And I see that a mentorship and sponsorship, when it's internal, far closer. Whereas if you've got external perspective and experience, I think it can just help you navigate and problems.
And this leads very much into what you said very early on, which was about your passion in helping people use their skills, transferable skills, and to be brought into organizations for what they can do, not because they don't know that specific thing straight away. I mean, that can all be taught. What I'm hearing from you is, look at who's in front of you. Remember what your strengths are. Could be overplayed, could be underplayed. Actually, what we're looking for is what's the right thing for the person in front of you to help them feel safe and confident, which then takes us into this whole psychological safety. How do we create that? And I think, and if a leader isn't able to share anything about themselves and they think, I am the leader, therefore I'm just about business now, you are really missing a trick. And often, well, actually, let me ask you, what do you think is behind that? Why do you think some people do that?
Maybe slightly not in touch with themselves, their people. I mean, if you can't share anything, like, I don't understand how you motivate, how you can take people on the journey. Like, how would you really take someone on a journey if they know nothing about you? And yes, you can choose what that might be, but there's got to be certain elements. Otherwise, how do people connect and then follow and then buy in? And so I think it would be honestly an outdated way of leading.
It's a very common way of leading. Tell you what I see, and you may actually have seen this in people, and it was going to link to a question I was going to ask you next, which is around, have you worked with people who you've seen are under or overconfident, and the impact that has? But when people don't feel able to be authentic, show up, do the thing they need to do, it might be just a behavioural style preference in I'm quite reserved anyway. Not that they wouldn't share, but it might take a bit longer. But often the environment says, no, we're here for numbers, that's it. And I would think in the environments you work in, it's a lot about numbers, but it's also about people getting those numbers. But then there's a lack of self-confidence in themselves, lack of training, lack of understanding how to. There's so many things that come into that. You're a real breath of fresh air in that you just, whatever you didn't know, you've gone to learn to do it. And a lot of it sounds like it's innate. Very few leaders out there are like that. I think, and I don't want to embarrass you because I know you don't like hearing good stuff, but I think you're quite special. So you can take that, move on. It's okay.
Thank you,
Sarah. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. So how do you, when you see people, this question is, how have you seen people impacted by confidence, too much or too little? And how have you seen that affect their effectiveness or the effectiveness of people around them? Have you ever experienced that for a start?
Yeah. So without a doubt, especially working in for many years in the sales environment and interviewing thousands of salespeople, it became very clear to me that a lot of people like to overplay, overcompensate, oversell on their abilities. I hate to say it because it isn't always the way, and I've led some phenomenal male sales leaders. But there is this male hubris and I think female humility. Generally, absolutely generally. I know that we have discussed imposter syndrome, which is 99% of the time to women. I think seemed to have come up around women. But on the flip side of that is the Dunning Kruger effect. And that is when you overestimate your own competence and you oversell it only to underdeliver. And I've seen 1,000,001 sales CVs over the years, and it becomes very clear because people are just jumping from one thing to the other because they promise the world and deliver nothing. And I think, women are generally promoted, right, more on their actual performance than their potential. And I think where we're going wrong when it comes to hiring and promoting is that you don't have to have done it all before. What you do have to show is where you have learned and you have delivered, and your intention and your ability to learn quickly and have a growth mindset and have the work ethic and the attitude and all of those things. Like that massively outweighs a CV that says, I worked in a large org for like 7 years doing this one thing, right? And then I've jumped around multiple times. And people fit within different sizes of organizations, within different roles, and some will suit and some won't. But when that becomes a pattern, it's glaringly obvious, right? And I think most of the orgs I've worked in my mid to later career have been startup, scale-up, where there's nowhere to hide. And unfortunately, some of the hires and the lessons that I learned was actually when you do often pick people that have been in large organizations for a long period of time, they're just not ready to have the spotlight shone on them. They're not ready to have to be accountable in the way that you often are in a smaller place where, everything matters more, money's tighter.
And whatever you're showing off about or claiming actually can be proven. Whereas in the bigger organizations, you can get away with saying something and it doesn't actually come to fruition or be true.
And hiding behind people and brand often. Big brand, big name, what people promise, it's more inbound. I think when you've proven yourself and delivered, because everything for me is about delivery and execution, is that when you've proven that over a serious amount, not a serious amount of time, but a tangible amount of time, enough time, then that speaks volumes. Different approaches, different viewpoints, but without a doubt, through the interview processes, I'll dig for the people that I think have got the core skills to enable them to have the confidence and feel comfortable in an interview, to make sure I get the very best of them, not just the ones that oversell and love to put it on a plate. And, then I'll challenge them on examples around that kind of,
So thinking back to it sounds like you've encountered more people who look like they're overconfident, but they are, they can also be masking, they're hiding something, they're playing a game, they're fitting into the environment they're in, and all of that. That doesn't necessarily lead to being effective. And what you're saying is when you get them into a smaller environment, you can see how ineffective they are because there's nowhere to hide. So it's quite exposing, isn't it? But it amazes me how many big organizations allow overconfidence for whatever reason to be at play, because to me, it's just as dangerous to performance, to motivation, especially when we're talking at a leader level, as underconfidence is. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Do you see a difference in the two?
I mean, without a doubt, there's a risk in both, right? But I think that should come out through quality hiring processes and then self-assessments and regular reviews, and not just being annual reviews. I think there's a huge amount of things that organizations can do from the very beginning of onboarding throughout the process to be able to find that out.
To manage the levels of confidence, maybe to give them the training they need to feel safe, to create an environment, the right culture so that they can behave the right way. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I do. And ultimately, the overconfident people get rid of because they're not actually delivering. But you've got to have visibility. You've got to have your leaders being accountable, not just hidden behind HR. I think, unfortunately, a lot of organizations then put a load of hierarchy in and no one's really responsible. Everyone's hiding and they all stay in roles getting paid far too much
the
money.
louder and more confident they appear to be, what we see is so many of them get promoted, and then it causes even more havoc. The higher up they go, the more havoc it causes.
Yeah, and I have to say, from my experience, that actually the ones that struggled through interview but had solid, skills, attitudes, then if you nurture them, they're the ones that fly, and they're the ones that do better with the customer, they're not over themselves with their ego. They're more collaborative. And I think this is vital. You have individual teams with their set goals, but unless you have an overarching goal to drive them all to work together to deliver that goal, people are going to pull in their own way. It's going to be silos. And I think from a revenue operations perspective, from a chief revenue officer perspective, right, is that you're wrapping your arms around everything from, marketing to sales to customer success. You've got to have product development. You've got to have operations in there, because if you are, supporting the client end to end, from the entry point to when they may exit and understanding why they're exiting, you can't really spot the opportunities where the revenue's leaking. So for me, it is that kind of encompassing the entire organization, even though you have a commercial hat on, is where you find the biggest opportunity to grow. And look, in revenue operations, if you get that right, you're looking at, increasing your revenues 10 to 20% just by bringing those teams together.
Collaborating, confidently opening up. Absolutely. Yeah, it makes a huge, huge difference. I mean, whenever we see teams at the top that are communicating effectively, allowed to be authentic, there's no fear or reduced fear at this, tensions lower, we see motivation, productivity go up. But having that, that one vision, we're going towards this together, even though we do it differently, is so important.
Yeah, and you're serving, different types of people. You're working with different types of people. I think the more diverse your organization, the better. And yes, it's more challenging. Honestly, it is way more challenging to have to think about how everybody is thinking, because it might be a little bit different, and how you communicate and the oversharing. Because if everyone's like you, it's a lot easier, but that isn't going to make a strong organization, right? It just doesn't make sense. You need to have your stabilizers, you need to have your front runners, you need to have the operational, it's a mix of people that deliver great work, in my view.
I'm just having a real horrible image of a whole organization of me's.
Yeah, I was the same. I mean, yeah,
it would be very noisy. I know that much. Okay, so want to just to sort of bring this together now. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to leaders who maybe feel they're not capable on paper, but they're not feeling as capable inside? So we're looking at people who are lacking that self-esteem, that self-belief. What's one thing, you seem to embody it naturally, but what would you advise people? You've been to the point where you've not felt it. How would you suggest that people build up their confidence? What's 1, 2, or 3 things you advise them to do?
The self-reflection piece is key. The more of that you can do on a regular basis is everything. Asking for feedback, doing your own 360 reviews, gather the intel, right? Let's understand what people are thinking within the organization of you. Don't be fearful of that. And also asking for help, go and look for a coach, go and find your personal advisory board, go and pick your people that know you, that you admire, that they have skills that you don't have, that are in your organization, outside your organization. Ultimately, you can't do it alone. No one is, everything. No one is perfect. But lean into your strengths. Make that your superpower. You don't need to be great at everything, but you do need to be aware of it. And I think, again, that goes back to that self-reflection piece. You are who you are. There is only one of you. Be the best version of you. You don't need to be like me or anyone else.
And enjoy it.
Be you.
And the bit about asking for feedback, I mean, people who are suffering with imposter syndrome, low levels of self-belief, whatever you want to call it, confidence issues, are terrified of asking for feedback. But what you often find is when you do, you hear really good stuff. And if you are going to ask for feedback, one thing I will say is be really clear what you want feedback on and why you want it, because it's really difficult. I don't know if this has happened to you. If someone's come up to you and said, can I have some feedback on that? And immediately the brain goes, which bit? I wasn't listening to it all. Oh gosh, what do you want to know? And so you can't give good feedback. So if you're going to ask for it, be clear on why, be clear on what, and warn people that you're going to ask it. So don't just drop in and go, can you? Because it terrifies people. And then we might give feedback that isn't terribly helpful to that person. Okay, so good advice. And I would also say something I'm surprised you didn't add to that is join a like-minded group of people.
Yes,
if people wanted to join, I've got to get this right, Caxton Career Collective?
Connection Career Collective. Connection. Either call it Connection or CCC.
The one that you run. What sort of people are you attracting? So this is females and allies, and it's particularly for people in tech, or can it be outside of tech as well?
It's all about diversity of thought. I mean, it's generally women in underrepresented industries and underrepresented roles generally. And because of my network and my founders' networks, that often is in tech, financial services, professional services. But we are open to everyone. We've had TFL, we have, we've got various different industries whereby we see too few women climbing the ladder, and that's what this is about. And it's supporting them to do that in their own authentic way with a community around them to support and shout them out and make them feel great about themselves along the journey. And also the training and education piece, right? Like, we're not all, ready for what's next, but if you've got the attitude that you want more and you want to progress, then we're absolutely there to support.
It's great. I mean, I've had the pleasure of going to one of your meetings, and it was really, really enjoyable. The energy, the camaraderie, the friendship, the support. It was really good. And I think we forget, especially when we're doing a lot of work on Zoom or Teams or whatever you're using, we forget the power of being with people, of connecting. So yes, if that is in your, if that is in your line of sight, wanting to join something like that, then please do get in touch with Mel, because I'm sure she'd be happy to chat you through it. Final question for you. I talk about leading brightly. For you, what is that? What does it mean to you? And how do you try and live that out? That's quite a big question, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me personally, and leaning into my strengths, it is a huge amount about energy and vision, and then conveying that so others can follow and buy in and feel part of something. We all work multiple hours of the week. So that has to be a time where you are happy and you are driven and you are motivated as much as possible. Yes, there's tough times, but I think that's vital. And really living and breathing like a growth mindset. Like every day is a school day. That, staying relevant, making sure I understand, that's why I equally mentor. I get so much back from learning from the younger generations and making sure I'm, still with it as much as possible. 7-year-old daughter also helps. Empathy is something that I've worked on a huge amount of myself, because that wasn't a strength. Without a doubt, having my own challenges, and my daughter has given me far more of an empathetic viewpoint. My mum's had cancer and my dad died. I mean, all these things, right? But it's definitely made me more of an empathetic leader. We've discussed it at length, but being authentic, inappropriate, being transparent, like, I think there's such value in that. And honesty. I mean, whatever you see, you get. You
can't beat honesty, can you? There's something really interesting that people think they can hide stuff, and you can't really, because you're leaking it. So even if something awful is going on in your life and you're not telling somebody, their brain is picking up that something awful is going on, and they will assume often that it's something to do with them. So actually, you're doing a disservice and an unkindness, really, not to say, listen, I'm just not in a good place right now. You don't have to go into details, but being honest.
Yeah, I should have said that kind. I honestly think that it's such an important word in leadership. People think being nice is being kind. Being nice is not being kind. It doesn't matter whether people like you or not. People should respect you, I would hope. But being kind is giving the critical feedback, right? It is taking the time to actually, think hard enough about others and sharing things that they could improve upon. Look, we could go through life with all the pats on the back and all the rest of it. It doesn't make us any better.
It doesn't help us.
Absolutely. So I do believe in being kind, and sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. I've let people go from roles. It's not easy for someone to not have a job, but the reasons were there. They were clear. They'd had time to try and learn and develop. The organisation or the role was just not fit for them.
It's okay. Yeah.
It's absolutely, it's a stepping stone. It's not the right time. It's not the right thing. But by taking the time and energy for them to understand properly, people have gone on to work in like record labels and flying high and, all sorts of amazing things in the moment it's tough, but as long as you frame it and you to spend time trying to develop people, look, sometimes it is just the wrong time, the wrong role, the wrong org, and then there's plenty, well, there's not plenty, well, there is plenty of jobs out there
there's
right
a lot
now,
of opportunity if you know how to go and find it. And actually, you've just reminded me of being in a chemistry lab a long time ago, and like I did a degree in applied chemistry. Don't ask me why or how, but it just ended up that way. And I had a year out in a lab, and I remember being in the lab, being very noisy with all these very quiet scientists. And my boss at the time gave me the best feedback that I could ever have had, which was, "Don't ever work in a lab. It really doesn't."
Doesn't help yet, or was it that you were kind of blowing
I
things
found
up
it boring. I was loud. They weren't loud. I didn't have the patience to sit and wait for 4 hours, sometimes 4 days, for something to drip over into another, I don't even know what they're called, vial. I didn't have that, but that was some of the best feedback. It wasn't rude. It was anything. It was just clear fact. You don't belong here, and that's okay, because I knew I didn't either. And I went into a world of sales, and I was happier than ever. So I think it's giving the truth, being kind. As long as we do it with the right intent, that's it. Honesty is absolutely key. And I'm going to leave with one final thought. You mentioned respect. It is impossible for people to respect us if we don't respect ourselves, our boundaries, what we stand for, what we're worth, believe in the value that we add. And when we do that, we start to exude that magnetism that allows us to attract the people to us that we need and want in our lives in all different shapes and forms. But Mel, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I could go on and on and on. I love talking to you. I love your energy. I love your drive. I'm just so, it's amazing what you've achieved. It's really inspirational. Keep going. Let's see what's next. And thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for obviously a great podcast in general, not just this episode. And
because I know I like. Let's say we were great.
But also because you're supporting leaders, right? And it's not easy. So the work that you do is valued.
Thank you, Mel.
Fantastic.